All right, so this video is going to be about our training think tank community. I thought it was relevant to talk about really for three major reasons. The first is that there's a lot of people in our community all over the world that don't have access to what we're doing in person, and I kind of wanted to share what we're doing. The second is that we're starting to touch a much bigger audience now that's outside of the training think tank culture, and I wanted them to understand what it is that we stand for, who we are, and what we're building. And the third is there's people out there either within the community or outside of our community that are now looking to us with regards to how do you coach, how do you build a business, and I wanted to explain what the mindful development of a culture looks like from inside the organization. And we sat down to do this video. I was actually doing it standing and had all my thoughts up on the board, and we have decided that we just like the way that it flows. I think I'm much more calm when I'm seated, and it's just a lot easier for me to think and get my ideas out when I'm sitting down here. So from now on, I'm gonna do my ideas videos sitting. However, if I look to the right, all of my notes are written up on the whiteboard, so you kind of understand why it is that I just keep looking off to the right and I don't have some sort of a tick. So with regards to community development, I think a lot of the community got built here in person to support the athletes. As a coaching organization, I've always, from day one, said that the success of an athlete is not dictated by their coach. A coach can play an integral role, but it's not going to dictate wins or losses. The things that are going to influence wins and losses are genetics, the training protocols, which can come from a coach, lifestyle variables, which is like career, how much sleep somebody's getting, what's their quality of sleep, how much money they have and financial stress to be able to buy soft tissue therapy and do all the things that are required to support athletics, how you deal with pressure on game day, which is a huge variable and a very, very difficult thing to deal with. And then the last is the training environment. That includes kind of training partners, the emotional energy, the competitive instinct of the people that are within the culture, how people deal with winning and losing. I remember Rich Froning, I don't remember when it was or what interview it is, but he said, I understand why coaches exist and I understand that they're important, but for me, I'd much rather have a good training partner. And I, being an ex-athlete, understood what he was saying by that. I know how powerful it is when you're in the middle of a suffering to look next to you and see that either somebody's dealing with it better than you and you need to put a fire under your ass to move faster, or you look to your left and you realize they're suffering more than you and it makes it almost feel better. And so having that environment is vital to athletes. Now, before I get really into the culture building and the community building, I first wanted to say, within Training Think Tank as a community, we're much more than just a house for athletes. However, athletes, from a business perspective, are a huge marketing resource for me. If I say that I think I'm a good coach, then I need some of the best athletes in the world to agree with that sentiment and say, you need to go to them for coaching because they made a difference in terms of whether or not I was winning and losing. And they're a huge part of that marketing infrastructure. But they're actually a very small percentage of the overall business community, which includes our coaches, our support staff, our media team, admin, financial partners, clients who aren't full-time athletes, who are just like, trying to get fit or playing other sports or, weekend warriors. And as I'm building the in-person culture, I'm trying to build a culture that is conducive to ensuring that those athletes are successful, but also that the infrastructure supports my entire business vision, which includes more than just athletic development. As we start to put out more content, I think you'll understand kind of what it is that I stand for outside of athletics and how I don't want to say inspire people, but maybe just discuss topics of life so that people can more mindfully live their own lives and find happiness. So now that I got that out of the way, I can discuss how I have tried. I don't know if it's successful or not. I think only the future will tell me that, but how I've tried to build a community. And the first thing is I'm evaluating behavioral characteristics of talent that I'm bringing on board. And I think of all people that are coming on to work as Training Think Tank as an investment in potential. I don't necessarily look at what somebody's done in the past or where they are. Instead, I'm looking at what can this person do to improve their own subset of skills so that they become great at what they do. And in the process of doing that, we find synergy together and push the organization forward. And I find that there are certain behavioral characteristics that are necessary to make that happen. The first is that they are striving to find individuality. I don't really like conformist behavior, and I know it's hard to build a community of people that are like-minded that are also individual-minded at the same time. However, I think it's extremely important. The concept of a think tank in and of itself is that there can be conflict of ideas and that people can push them to make them better. So individuality is number one. Number two is a tireless work ethic. That's pretty straightforward. I think that life, athletics, business development, creativity, they're all really, really difficult things to do and create and to try to become. And if you're lazy, I don't think you'll ever get those accomplished. I'm always looking for people that are willing to work. Three is the ability to stay on task. I think our culture in general with phones and social media and a lack of reading have really eroded people's attention spans and their ability to stay on task. And I find it very hard to get somebody on board with a vision if they don't have the attention span to actually understand what the vision is in the first place. So that would be number three. Number four is emotional coping strategies. So as I said, I don't know if I have a dark view of reality, but I understand that challenges are always going to present themselves. And those challenges generally come with negative emotions: sadness, frustration, anger, fear, anxiety, and all those things. You need the ability to cope with them and move forward in spite of them. So having a strong ability to cope or a strong support system is important. Number five is eliminating excuses from your mind. This is a tough one because I evaluate situations. So if I do poorly at something and I say I did poorly because of this, it's hard for me to understand whether or not I'm making an excuse as to why I lost, or as to whether I'm making an explanation about what I need to do in the future to ensure that that doesn't become my weak link in a future competition that stops me from winning. So an evaluation and an excuse are very similar to me. What I look for in people is that if they find something that they're not good at and they use it as an excuse or an explanation as to why they lost, that they have the ability and the discipline to start working on that thing to ensure that in the future, it's no longer an excuse. Now, in the process of getting better, you're constantly finding things that are excuses, making them better, and then finding new excuses. And in the process of getting better over time, you start to eliminate the old excuses that you used to use. And I think finding people that have that type of mind state, that they're trying to always ensure that the thing that's holding them back now is no longer in their heads stopping them, is important. Six is a desire for progress. It seems from just my observation of people that many people are driven by a desire for attention. Now, they also accuse it or confuse attention with love or admiration, and they think that all attention is good attention. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I don't really think in a lot of ways people that are craving attention are going to create meaning and create really elaborate things, because they're always going to be swayed by the opinion of people that they have no idea who they are. And I don't really feel like you can get behind a vision and work behind a vision if you're more concerned about what some random person out there thinks of you than you are what the group inside of your own community thinks about. So when we define, okay, this is progress for our organization, when I sit down and have meetings and say, this is what we want to get accomplished, I need to make sure that everybody's on task with that and they're not easily distracted and they're constantly trying to make sure that that is progressing in the way that we're working on together. 7 is a love for competing. I think if we're going to have athletes in the community at all, that means that whoever else is in the community needs to understand what competing is all about. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to be competitive. Sometimes people are just fans, some people are cheerleaders, some people are just support structures for other people who compete. So a massage therapist, doesn't necessarily need to be competitive, but they need to love people that are willing to strive and push themselves to the point that they do need therapy. So there needs to be an understanding of how much competition gives to society and gives to people with regards to finding meaning and purpose and careers and just finding emotions that can sometimes be hard to find throughout the course of life. And then last, I think, is an excitement for wisdom. So in the information age, I think information has become cheapened because you can get information on Wikipedia or some sort of internet platform relatively easily. However, you can't get experience easily. If you have all the information in exercise physiology textbook and have been to school and have your master's degree, that's great. But if you haven't put your time in actually coaching people, then you really haven't developed any wisdom in the industry. So that kind of goes into the people that I want in my culture. Now, it becomes really difficult now when I'm talking how I am building the culture, because I'm not really building it anymore. We collectively are building it. And I don't think I can manipulate humans. I can't manipulate humans that even care about me. I can potentially inspire them. I can give them a model for what I want them to do, but I can't necessarily explain something in a way that makes them control their actions. So as a leader of an organization, I try to lead by example. I remember seeing an infographic before in the past, and there's like a guy sitting on a throne, like whipping people ahead of him as they're dragging. And it says like what leadership sometimes turns into. And then there's another picture next to that of somebody hand in hand on the rope, pulling the thing behind them with his entire team. And it says what leadership should look like. And I've kind of always ascribed to that as a leader. Is I don't want to tell people what to do. I want to show people what I do and hope that they act in a way that mimics the good stuff that I do and gets rid of the bad stuff that I do. And just as a side note, or bring my athletic background into how I approach business development, is I remember growing up, my coaches would say, "Don't talk about it, be about it." And I loved that, because there's so many people that'll tell you that they're great, that'll tell you that they're amazing at something, they can help you build your business. But then when you sit down and you really analyze them, you realize they haven't done anything. And I never wanted to be a person like that. I never wanted to be a person that's yelling at an athlete, "Come on, you got to go harder. Don't be soft like that." And then I don't train hard. I wanted them to know that anything that I'm telling them to do in order to make their dream come true is something that I'd be willing to do for my own dream to come true. It's just that my dreams now as a coach are a little bit different than as an athlete, but that's kind of how I try to earn my respect. So as a leader in the organization, now that I've brought a bunch of like-minded people with all of those characteristics under one roof, what I first tried to do is made sure that I took care of the competitive thing so that my athletes had a place that they could thrive. And what did that mean over the course of the last month, which is what I'm going to try to illustrate what my month has looked like in the past month and how I've acted as a leader of my organization, so that I can give a framework for other people of what that work looks like. This kind of goes against the "don't talk about it, be about it" thing, but within my own community, if you talk to them, this isn't something that I'm walking around bragging about. I'm simply just explaining this is what I do on a day-to-day basis, and this is the example that I try to set, and we'll find out in the future whether or not it works and whether or not I'm a good leader as a result of doing this. So far, it's worked. In the future, I might find that it hasn't. So the first thing is athletes have come into town. So we've had 9 regional athletes come to train in town individually, and that's training with Travis or training with the team on site or training with Ben. Then we've had 2 separate teams come to train with our team on the weekend, and if you run a business or if you're a coach, you understand how intrusive it is to have your entire day taken up by athletes in person, competing, things go poorly, somebody's upset because they lost, somebody's happy because they won, somebody's got an ache and they're worried that that's going to impact them, somebody gets sick. So my entire house, my day-to-day tasks got ruined, my programming time got taken away, and it just created an immense amount of extra work that I had to do throughout the day. However, it was important to create the environment that was necessary to create just competition in the gym. Now, on top of that competition, just the athletic competition, which is most important. You've probably seen like these joking things on social media, like the gymnastics games that we played.
Let's go, Mini Mac.
Spike ball. Here, it's not just a game from my perspective. All right.
Pause.
Yeah, we're pausing the video right now. I am about to go on a rant about spike ball and a freaking $20 gymnastics game from Target. And after we finished the video, we realized how absolutely ridiculous a serious video about the building of a culture would be if this guy is saying that spike ball and this game have helped to breed the competitive culture that was required to be an athlete. However, if you have been here visiting, which some people are and can attest to, and maybe even put in the comments that this is true, or if you're here, you'll know that it has served an integral role in the development of the pressure cooker that is competition, the shit talking, the screaming, the yelling, the dealing with wins and losses, the creation of excitement in a low energy environment, and it is important. So we just wanted to pre-discuss that so that any troll out there that's saying this guy's crazy for talking about spike ball understands that is important. So now back to your regular discussion. Here, it's not just a game from my perspective. It is a game in that, after it's over and nobody's crying about it and going home and practicing, except maybe me, to get better at them. But what I'm trying to do is make sure that there's a pressure-based environment of competition. And as a competitor myself, I try to set the example of what competition means, and I don't want those things to distract me from my working requirements. So with something like spike ball, just as a general rule of thumb, I have 90 minutes in my day inside the gym to work on my own physical training. I'll do some mobility and meditation stuff in the evening to work on my own fitness and my own body. But if I play spike ball, I look at the clock, the second it's over, I deduct that from my 90 minutes and my training has to get adjusted to that. And then from that, I've created an understanding in my own training model what the adaptations that I'm getting from spike ball are on my body. So hand-eye coordination, agility, change of direction, working on my ankle and my knee that were broken and had surgery on. And I have a certain amount of time allotted to those physical skills in my normal training week. And if I play spike ball, it becomes, okay, well, that's taken its time there. Additionally, my mobility, I tore this labrum and bicep tendon in high school. So getting into external rotation and doing this motion is really difficult for my shoulder capsule. So playing the game will irritate my shoulder just enough to the point that when I go home, I can actually get some sensory feedback from the pain and do my mobility training. So within the context of that being a fun game that increases the competitiveness of the environment, I've figured out a way in my own day-to-day tasks how to make sure that it fits with my priorities and my goals, how to make sure that it fits within the culture and the community, and how to make sure that it doesn't distract from the overall focus of the overall facility. Now, that's just a stupid example of a game that goes on, but it's actually, if you've been around here, it becomes a really central game that has allowed everyone to come together and get to know one another. Chris came on site. He's creating his own artistic expression videos with the Road to the Game series, and anybody that's created anything knows it's emotionally and physically exhausting, and you get everything sucked out of you and put into this thing. And so he gets into these states where he needs excitement and needs some sort of just feeling and rage and emotion so that he can go back and do his work. So it's actually a vital component of our business. If it ever came to the point that it wasn't, then I'd probably need to have a discussion with everybody involved that, hey, this is now becoming something that isn't conducive to what we're trying to build. So I think all that I really wanted to do with regards to explaining spike ball and the gymnastics game, which I didn't talk about, but in order to keep the video short enough, I'm not going to explain the insanity that goes into the gymnastics game also. But what I am trying to illustrate is that everything that goes on in your environment, if you're trying to be a leader, you need to make sure that it's conducive to your overall growth, your goals, your learning, and also the progress and focus of all of the subcomponent people that are within your community. So that takes care of the competitive culture. What am I trying to do then on top of that? So one of the things that I value is reading. Over the past month, with all of that stuff going on, I still have read. I took the FMS breathing course. I resubscribed to Alan Aragon's research review. I read, I'm 90% or 78 or some percentage between 70 and 90 done with conscious coaching. I started a book on time perception last night. I read The Back Mechanic, and I read The Leader with No Title. So no matter what's going on in my life and how much I'm training and how much I'm building, I'm constantly making sure that I'm learning, because it's something that I try to ensure that all my coaches are working on a regular basis. I've made sure that I've hit my own training. So of the last 40 days, I've only had 4 days that I didn't do training. And my goal now at this stage of my life is to make sure that I'm training every single day. And my training is not super intense all the time. So, basically 10% of the days I failed to meet my objective. I'm not really super happy about that, but I'm trying to make sure that as I move forward, no matter what's going on, whether I'm getting on a flight, whether I'm flying somewhere, whether I have athletes in town, that I'm making time for my own physical goals. Again, I think that's something important to make sure that if we're a fitness, health, performance organization, that as a leader, I'm doing that myself, no matter what else is going on. I've taken meetings with anybody that's requested them in my own staff, and I set a directive and tell them, I'm not going to come and talk to you unless something is wrong. So if you need me, just tell me that you need me so that I could focus on my task. And I haven't missed any meetings. I've been rebuilding our strength course. I set out when I first created our courses to make sure they're updated every 2 years, and I'm really excited about this next redo, not only because we learn new things, but because we have access to a sweet creative director who's going to make them more visually appealing and more easily digestible, and I'm excited to kind of rebuild those things moving forward. I'm trying to make sure that I'm staying on top of this content creation so that now that we're putting stuff out, we don't let an audience down by starting to get stagnant and not create new stuff. And then lastly, I'm still coaching. I coach 31 individual athletes. I coach every single one of them individually, write their own programs, email them every day. Every time their results come in, I put it into their Excel document. And so I don't really say that to, say, oh my God, Max is amazing, or Max does so much, because I know there's a bunch of people out there in their own grinds doing their own things. I really am only saying that to let people know if there's any form of success that people perceive that we're having here, it's not by accident. It's because everybody here is busting their ass, is tired all the time, because we're working and we're really extended to the limits of our capacity. And I understand that, because as a startup organization, we're only coming up on 4 years old. A 4-year-old business is never going to be funded at the level of a 10 or 15-year-old mature business that has the resources to ensure that everybody's time is managed at a high level. So I understand that my team is grinding too, and if my team is grinding, then I need to be on the front lines with them. So That's how we're building the community. That's kind of what our community stands for. I wanted to make sure that at the end of this video, I had a really, really clear takeaway message. And that is, if you want to accomplish anything in this world, you want to be rich, you want to get lean, you want to be a high-level athlete, you want to have the respect of people, you want to get somebody's attention that you find is a good sexual partner for you, whatever it is that floats your boat, you got to work for it. Nothing is going to come easy that has any meaning.